The sky changed before anyone noticed. At first, it was only a deepening gray, the kind that made fishermen glance nervously at the horizon. Then came the silence, a strange, hollow quiet that seemed to swallow every sound from the sea. The dogs stopped barking, the waves held their breath, even the birds vanished. And then it came. They called it Kalmaegi, a name whispered like a curse, the seagull, though no creature of God ever looked like this one. It rose from the ocean like a living thing, its spiraling clouds twisting and clawing at the heavens. From a distance, it was beautiful, almost divine, a vast white dragon with a single black eye. But when it reached the shore, beauty turned to terror. The storm struck the coast with the fury of 1,000 roars. Wind tore through villages like invisible blades. Roofs lifted and spun into the darkness. Palm trees bent until they cracked like bones. Rain fell sideways, 1,000 arrows slicing the night. The sea leapt from its bed, devouring roads, homes, and the screams of those who could not run fast enough. In the capital, the news anchors' voices trembled as they read the bulletins. Wind speeds over 200 kilometers per hour, flood levels rising, power grid down. By midnight, communication with several provinces had been lost. The government declared a national disaster. The army was dispatched, but by then, Kalmaegi had already carved its name into the map, in mud, ruin, and death. When dawn finally broke, it was as if the world had been erased and drawn again by trembling hands. Whole neighborhoods were gone. Bridges hung in tatters. Fishing boats lay crushed like toys against the rocks. In the streets, people wandered barefoot through the wreckage, stunned, silent, as though their souls had been stripped away along with their roofs. Some searched for loved ones, calling names into the wind that no longer answered. The air smelled of salt, oil, and sorrow. At the edge of a collapsed church, a young woman knelt in the rubble, clutching the remnants of a wooden cross. Her child's shoe lay beside her, a tiny blue thing filled with mud. She pressed it to her chest and whispered a prayer that dissolved into sobs. Elsewhere, an old fisherman stood by the ruins of his house, staring at the spot where his wife's garden had been. He found her rosary tangled in a fishing net, each bead coated with sand. He could not tell if it was a sign or a mockery. By the end of that day, official reports spoke cold numbers. 2,307 dead, 530 missing, more than 100,000 houses destroyed or uninhabitable. But numbers could not describe the faces, the blank eyes of children, the trembling hands of mothers, the way the sky seemed to weep for them.
In shelters made from torn tarpaulins and salvaged wood, survivors huddled together. They shared food, stories, silence. At night, the rain still came, though softer now, as if the heavens regretted what they had done. People lit candles, not for light, but for memory. And above them, the moon hid behind the clouds, ashamed to look down. The monster named Kalmaegi had passed, but something else lingered in its wake, something unseen, something waiting beneath the ruins. A question whispered in every broken heart. Why were we spared? When the storm ended, the world did not awaken, it simply stirred. The air still smelled of sea salt and decay. The streets were streaked with black water, and the hills wore crowns of debris. But amid the ruin, people began to move again, slowly, like the first heartbeat after a long sleep. In the northern quarter of the town, a small church still stood. Its bell tower had collapsed, its walls cracked open like a broken shell. The roof was half gone, exposing wooden beams splintered by the wind. Yet, somehow, the altar remained, drenched, scarred, but standing. That was where the people came. They arrived barefoot, carrying candles that sputtered in the wind. Some brought flowers plucked from drowned gardens. Others came empty-handed, with only their grief. The pews were soaked and warped, but no one cared. They knelt on the wet floor, pressing their palms together, whispering prayers into the hollow air. A woman began to sing. Her voice was rough, trembling at first, then rising like a flame in the darkness. Ave Maria, gratia plena. Others joined her, one by one, voices thin, cracked, but strong in their unity. The melody floated through the ruins, brushing over the faces of those who wept, those who listened, those who simply stared at the cross, as if expecting it to speak. Outside, the sun pierced through a wound in the clouds. Light spilled over the broken church, striking the shards of stained glass scattered on the ground. For a moment, the fragments glowed, blue, red, gold, as though heaven itself were remembering. In the shelters, faith took quieter forms. A father carved a small cross from a piece of driftwood and hung it above his daughter's cot. An old nun went from tent to tent with her rosary, blessing anyone who asked, and many who didn't. Children gathered around her, curious about the small silver beads. "What does it do?" one boy asked. She smiled. "It reminds God we're still here." Even those who had never prayed before began to murmur words they barely remembered. They prayed not for miracles, but for endurance, for one more sunrise, one more meal, one more chance to rebuild. But faith, like the storm, revealed what was hidden in people's hearts. Some prayed with unshaken trust. Others wept not in devotion, but in defiance, demanding answers from a silent sky. "Why them and not me?" whispered a man beside the ruins of his house. No one replied.
At night, when the wind carried the cries of the sea through the broken windows, people clung to each other. They told stories of survival. A child found floating on a door, an old man rescued from a tree, a dog that led rescuers to buried neighbors. In each tale, listeners found something beyond logic, a thread of grace woven through chaos. One evening, as the last light faded, a priest in a mud-stained cassock stood before the congregation gathered in the ruined church. His voice shook as he spoke. "We have lost everything," he said. "But look around you. You are here. We are still together. The Lord has not abandoned us. Perhaps we are the ones who had forgotten Him." He lifted the chalice, chipped, dented, filled with rainwater instead of wine, and whispered the words of blessing. The people bowed their heads, and for the first time since Kalmaegi's wrath, silence felt holy instead of empty. Outside, a candle guttered in the wind, but did not go out. Its tiny flame burned stubbornly against the dark, fragile, trembling, alive. And so, amid the ruins, faith endured. Not in the grand cathedrals or golden statues, but in the hearts of the broken, who refused to stop believing that light would return. The third week after Kalmaegi, the sky began to soften. The clouds broke apart into slow, wandering shapes, and the scent of salt gave way to damp earth. The soldiers had finished their patrols. The rescue teams had gone. What remained was silence, the long, aching silence that follows grief when there are no more tears left to cry. In the alleys where the water had receded, people began to clear the debris. Men lifted broken beams. Women swept away the thick black mud with brooms made from coconut leaves. Every day brought the same discoveries: shattered furniture, bloated animals, the photographs of strangers staring up from the ground. But that morning they found something different. It happened near the old quarter, in what used to be a narrow street lined with small shops. The group there was tired: 3 men, a boy, and an old woman who refused to rest. They worked in silence until one of them struck something hard beneath the muck. "Probably stone," the boy said, scraping at the mud. But as the shape emerged, the old woman gasped. It was not stone. It was a face. They cleared the earth carefully. What they uncovered was a statue, small, about the height of a child. The figure lay on its side, half buried, its robe stained brown with silt. But the face was untouched, smooth, pale, serene. The eyes cast downward in gentle sorrow, lips curved in quiet compassion. A statue of the Virgin Mary. The boy stepped back, uneasy. Where did it come from? No one knew. There had been no church here, only houses and shops. No one remembered seeing such a statue before the storm.
The old woman knelt beside it, trembling. She reached out a trembling hand and wiped the mud from the statue's cheek. Her fingers came away clean, as though the rain itself had washed and guarded it. "It's impossible," one man whispered. "Everything was destroyed." The others said nothing. They only stared at that calm, unbroken face lying amid the ruin, a softness that did not belong to this wounded place. Word spread quickly. By afternoon, a small crowd had gathered. Children peered between the legs of adults. Mothers clutched their babies tighter. Someone placed a flower beside the statue. Another began to pray. Within an hour, the air buzzed with murmurs. "It's a miracle. She protected us. Maybe she was here all along. Maybe she came because of the storm." Not everyone believed. Some said it was coincidence, a relic washed up from somewhere else, nothing more. But even the skeptics spoke in hushed tones, their eyes drawn to the statue's stillness, its faint glimmer beneath the fading sun. As night fell, the people lit candles around her. The soft light flickered against the walls, casting shadows that danced like wings. The flames bent in the wind, but the statue did not move. Her gaze remained steady, unbroken, as if she were listening. And in that fragile light, something shifted in the hearts of those who stood there. They felt, for the first time since the storm, that they were not alone. Later, the boy who found the statue would tell his mother, "When I looked at her, I wasn't afraid anymore. It was like she was watching over us." His mother didn't answer. She only wept quietly, clutching him close. That night, the candles burned long after the people had gone home. And though the wind rose again before dawn, none of them went out. His name was Thomas. Before the storm, he had been known as a good man, a fisherman, a husband, a father of two. He attended Mass every Sunday, never missed a feast day, and his voice was always the loudest when the choir sang Gloria in excelsis Deo. But Kalmaegi had taken everything. They found his boat split in half on the rocks. His home gone. His wife and children missing. For 3 days he searched among the ruins, calling their names until his voice broke. He found only his daughter's hair ribbon tangled in seaweed. After that, he stopped searching. When the neighbors spoke to him, he didn't answer. When the priest came, he turned away. And when someone said, "They're with God now," Thomas spat on the ground. "Then your God is a murderer." He no longer prayed. He no longer worked. He sat each day beside what had been his house, staring at the sea as though daring it to come back and finish what it had started. The villagers pitied him, but they kept their distance. There was something wild in his eyes, a look that made people cross themselves when they passed. Then came the day he heard about the statue. The whole town was whispering about it. The Virgin Mary found untouched in the mud, her face clean, her presence miraculous. People said she had come to comfort the survivors, to remind them that God was still among them. When Thomas heard it, he laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "God among us," he said? "Where was he when my children screamed?" But something in him twisted. Anger, disbelief, or perhaps the faintest flicker of something he didn't want to name. That night, while others slept, he went to see the statue for himself. The moon was high, veiled behind thin clouds. He found the site easily. Candles still burned around her, their wax pooled like tears on the earth. The statue lay on a wooden crate now, raised slightly above the mud. Her white face glowed faintly in the dark. Thomas stood there for a long time, silent. Then he began to tremble, not from cold, but from rage. "You," he whispered. "You watched it happen. You let them drown. You let everyone suffer." He stepped closer. His voice rose, cracking with fury. "You don't belong here. None of this is real. There are no miracles." He picked up a stone and hurled it. It struck the statue's chest, hard. The sound echoed across the ruins. But the stone broke in half. The statue did not. He froze, then screamed, a raw animal sound, and kicked the crate. It toppled, yet the figure did not fall. She remained upright, balanced as though held by invisible hands. Thomas staggered back, breathing hard. The candles around her flickered wildly, their flames bowing in one direction, toward him. The air grew thick, heavy, almost electric. He felt it before he saw it, a sudden warmth on his face, like sunlight through water. The statue's eyes, he swore, gleamed. Not bright, just enough to make him see his reflection in them. And in that reflection, he saw himself, not the man he was, but what remained of him, hollow, broken, burning with hate. He dropped to his knees. "Why?" he whispered. "Why didn't you take me instead?" The wind answered with a sigh through the ruins, stirring the candles until they steadied again. The statue said nothing, but somehow, in her silence, there was no judgment, only sorrow. By dawn, people found Thomas lying beside the statue, mud-stained and trembling. He said nothing when they asked what had happened. He only stared at the statue's face, no longer defiant, but lost. Some claimed they saw tear marks on his cheeks. Others swore the statue herself looked different that morning, her lips softer, her eyes gentler, as if she had heard. Whispers spread quickly. The angry man tried to destroy her, and she forgave him. But Thomas did not return to his house. That same night, he disappeared into the forested hills beyond the village, leaving behind no word, no trace, only the memory of his rage and the silence that followed. The villagers went back to their prayers. Yet from that day on, those who visited the statue said they felt something new in the air. Not fear, not awe, but a strange, trembling peace, as though forgiveness itself had passed through the ruins. The days grew quieter after Thomas disappeared. The statue remained where it had been found, resting on the wooden crate, surrounded by candles and flowers that never seemed to wilt. Every morning, the villagers came to sweep the ground, replace the melted wax, and lay down offerings: bread, seashells, children's drawings. No one said the word miracle aloud anymore. It was too sacred, too dangerous. But everyone felt it, a change in the air, like the hush that falls before a hymn begins. It started with the child. Her name was Lucia, a 7-year-old girl who had fallen sick after the storm. The doctors from the city said the infection had spread too far. She wouldn't last the week. Her mother, refusing to give up, brought her to the statue one evening at sunset. The child was too weak to walk, so the mother carried her, thin, feverish, whispering nonsense through cracked lips. She laid Lucia's small blanket beside the Virgin and prayed. The candles trembled in the wind, but none went out. Before leaving, she tore a small piece of cloth from the edge of the blanket and placed it under the statue's hands. That night, the child's fever broke. By morning, she was sitting up, asking for food.
Her mother wept and thanked the doctors, but the doctors said they hadn't done anything. Word spread through the shelters like fire through dry grass. People began visiting again, bringing their sick, their crippled, their broken. Then came the second sign. A week later, heavy rain returned, brief but furious. One of the nearby houses, already weakened by the storm, collapsed in the night. The family inside survived by pure chance. The only room that remained intact was the small corner where they had placed a candle and a picture of the statue. When rescuers came at dawn, they found the photograph untouched, standing upright among the rubble. "The house fell," the father said, "but she kept us standing." Some called it luck. Others whispered the word they had been avoiding: miracle. By the end of that month, people began to arrive from neighboring towns. They came barefoot, carrying offerings, candles, rosaries, bundles of rice, handwritten notes. They prayed for healing, for forgiveness, for loved ones lost at sea. The small, muddy clearing transformed into a place of pilgrimage. Each night, the air shimmered with light, hundreds of candles flickering in the dark, their flames mirrored in the puddles like constellations. Songs rose softly through the wind: Ave Maria, Salve Regina, the same hymns once sung in the old church before Kalmaegi. Some claimed to smell roses, though none grew nearby. Others said they saw a pale glow above the statue at night, like a breath of moonlight that never faded. Even the skeptics came, journalists, professors, priests, with notebooks and cameras, eager to disprove what they called mass hysteria. But many of them left in silence, their questions unanswered. One evening, a man approached the statue carrying a crutch. His leg had been injured years before. He had walked with pain ever since. He knelt, pressing his forehead to the ground, and prayed not for healing, but for peace. When he stood up, the crutch slipped from his hand. He didn't need it anymore. The crowd gasped. The man turned, bewildered, as though realizing only then what had happened. He tried to speak, but no words came, only tears. The bells of the ruined church, silent since the storm, rang once in the wind. Of course, not everyone believed. The mayor warned against superstition. A newspaper called it collective imagination born from trauma. But even the skeptics could not deny what they saw: the growing calm in the people, the way they smiled again, the way the ruined town began to feel less like a grave and more like a heartbeat. The statue never changed. Her face remained the same, serene, untouched, eternal. But those who knelt before her often said they felt warmth, like sunlight behind closed eyes, or a voice inside that whispered without words. At the edge of the crowd one night, a child asked her mother, "Mama, why does she never speak?" The mother smiled faintly. "Maybe she doesn't need to. Maybe we're finally listening." And as the candles burned, the wind carried the faint scent of the sea, clean this time, almost sweet. The storm had taken much, but in its wake, something invisible had begun to grow. A fragile faith, born not from certainty, but from wonder. No one knew where Tomas had gone. Some said he'd drowned himself in the river. Others swore they saw him walking toward the mountains with nothing but a sack and a dead man's silence. In a town where everything had been washed away, it was easy for a man to disappear. Weeks passed. The statue remained. The miracles continued. And people began to speak of Tomas only in whispers, as if saying his name might summon the shadow of his rage again. But one dawn, as the mist rolled in from the sea, he came back. He looked thinner, older, his beard tangled, his eyes sunken but strangely clear. The villagers stopped what they were doing and watched as he walked through the square, barefoot and quiet. The same man who had once cursed God now moved as if every step were a prayer. He went straight to the statue. The candles from the night before still burned, their smoke curling in thin silver lines. He knelt in front of her, his body shaking. Some expected him to scream again, to break into madness as before. But when he lifted his head, there was no fury left, only tears. "I saw her," he whispered. No one spoke. The air itself seemed to lean closer. "In my dream," Tomas said, "she stood in the water. The sea was calm around her, calm after the storm. And she said only one thing to me: 'I am with you.'" He closed his eyes, trembling. "When I woke, I was lying on the shore. The tide had brought me back." From that day, Tomas changed. He asked for no food, no pity. He joined the rebuilding crews, hauling wood, clearing debris, helping anyone who needed it. His hands, once strong from casting nets, became calloused again, this time from service. He spoke little, but when he did, his words carried a strange gentleness. He helped repair the broken church walls, always the first to arrive, the last to leave. When people thanked him, he only shook his head. "Don't thank me," he said quietly. "Thank the one who gave me another chance." Children who once feared him now followed him, carrying bricks and nails, laughing as he taught them how to build. An old woman said she saw him one evening, sitting by the shore with a candle, praying for the souls lost to the storm. The same sea that had taken his family now reflected the light of his forgiveness. The priest who had once tried to comfort him came one day, hesitant. "Tomas," he said, "do you believe now that the statue is a miracle?" Tomas smiled faintly. "I don't know, Father. All I know is, when I look at her, the anger stops. And that is miracle enough." The priest nodded, unable to reply. Word of Tomas's return spread quickly. People said he had been touched by grace. When newcomers came to pray, they often found him there, guiding them, cleaning the candles, speaking softly to the children. He never preached, never claimed to have seen heaven, but something in his presence made others believe that heaven might be near. And then, one evening, as dusk fell and the air shimmered with candlelight, Tomas lifted his eyes to the statue and whispered, "If you could forgive me, perhaps I can forgive myself." The wind moved through the ruins, gentle as a sigh. The candles swayed, their flames bending toward him, just as they had the night he tried to destroy her. But this time, there was no anger, only peace. Those who watched from afar said the moment felt holy, not loud or dramatic, but quiet, like the earth itself had paused to listen. The man who had once cursed God was now rebuilding his house, one stone at a time. And so, the people began to believe again, not because of the miracles in the sky, but because of the change they saw in a broken man who had found light in the ruins. By the time autumn came, the story of the statue had reached beyond the town. Pilgrims arrived from distant provinces, farmers, fishermen, even city workers in pressed shirts who had never known prayer until now. The road that once led only to ruin now carried footsteps and song. Wherever they came from, they all brought the same question. Where did she come from? The villagers didn't know. They only said she was found after the storm. No one had placed her there, and no one dared to move her. But questions have a way of drawing answers, or those who think they can find them. The first to arrive were the journalists. 2 men and a woman wearing city clothes and carrying cameras. They took photographs of the statue from every angle, scribbling notes, measuring, debating in low voices. "It's limestone," one said, "maybe 18th century. Another shook his head. "Too well preserved, probably modern. Could have washed up from another church." The woman stayed silent, her eyes fixed on the statue's face. When she finally spoke, it was only one sentence. "Doesn't it feel like she's been waiting for someone?" A few days later, a group of priests and historians arrived. They brought old maps, records from the diocese, and a cautious tone. Their investigation began with skepticism. Miracles, after all, were not declared by emotion, but by evidence. They walked through the surrounding area, tracing the land's history. What they discovered astonished even them. Long ago, before the war, before most of the town even existed, there had indeed been a small stone church built on this very spot. It was called Nuestra Señora del Mar, Our Lady of the Sea. It had served the fishermen's families until a landslide destroyed it decades ago. No one rebuilt it. The land was abandoned, later buried under new homes and narrow alleys. The church was forgotten, erased by time and tide. And yet now, after the storm, the Virgin had returned. One of the priests knelt by the statue, brushing away the dust that had gathered on her base. He whispered a prayer, then turned to the villagers. "She never left," he said softly. "She was waiting beneath us all this time." But the others were less convinced. "Coincidence," said a scholar. "Perhaps debris from another chapel carried here by floodwater." "Impossible," said another. "The currents don't flow this way." The arguments went on until sunset, when the light turned golden and the statue's face seemed to glow faintly in the fading sun. The debate died in silence. That night, the investigators stayed in the village. The journalist who had been quiet before woke from her sleep, certain she had heard a bell. Not the metal clang of a modern church, but the soft, low toll of something ancient. She looked outside. No wind, no movement. Only the faint echo of sound, distant, mournful, calling. In the morning, she asked the villagers, "Do you still have a bell here?" They shook their heads. The storm took it long ago. She didn't mention the sound again, but she kept glancing at the ruins, as if expecting them to answer. Over the following days, more stories surfaced. Old fishermen recalled hearing their grandfathers speak of a church that vanished into the hill. A farmer unearthed fragments of blue glass that once formed stained windows. A child found a rusted piece of metal shaped like a cross buried near the statue. Piece by piece, the forgotten past rose to the surface, as if the storm had not destroyed, but revealed. By the end of the week, the priests held a small mass beside the statue. They built a makeshift altar of wood and stone. During the reading, a sudden gust of wind swept through, knocking over candles, all except one, the one nearest to the Virgin. Its flame held steady. The priest paused, then smiled. "Some truths," he said, "don't need proof. They only need to be seen." The journalists recorded everything. They would later publish their reports, filled with cautious words. Unexplained phenomena, religious fervor, historical curiosity. But among themselves, none could deny what they felt standing there. A strange quiet, as though the air itself had memory. That night, Tomas stood near the statue, watching the people pray. He touched the earth where the old church once stood, and whispered, "You were here all along." Behind him, the waves murmured softly, echoing the same truth, that faith, like the sea, sometimes hides what it protects. The mystery remained. Was the statue a relic returned by the storm, or a divine sign resurrecting a forgotten place of worship? No one could say for sure, but everyone agreed on one thing. Since her discovery, the village had changed. People spoke more kindly. Quarrels softened. Neighbors shared what little they had. The air that once smelled of rot now carried incense and flowers. It was as if the Virgin's presence had awakened something, not just beneath the earth, but within the people themselves. Faith, when young, burns like a flame, pure, bright, and hungry. But the longer it burns, the more it attracts the moths. By the 3rd month after the storm, the statue had become famous. Pilgrims arrived daily. Buses parked along the dirt road. Stalls appeared, selling candles, holy cards, bottles labeled Blessed Water of Kalmaegi. The muddy path was paved with footsteps and coins. Where once people came to weep, now they came to take photos. The townspeople watched the change with unease.
The humble clearing that had felt like sacred ground now echoed with chatter, bargaining, and the clink of money. Even the air smelled different. Less of incense, more of fried food and smoke. The priest tried to warn them. "This is not a marketplace," he said during Mass. "This is holy ground." But no one listened. The vendors argued they needed to survive. The mayor saw opportunity. He spoke to investors from the city who promised to build a shrine, a hotel, a road for tourists. Faith had drawn life back to the town, and greed followed close behind. That was when the strange things began. One afternoon, workers arrived with heavy equipment to level the land around the statue. They were supposed to move her temporarily to make room for construction. But as they tried to lift the wooden crate, the crane stalled. The engine sputtered, then died. They tried again, the same result. The foreman, impatient, shouted and cursed. Moments later, a cable snapped, whipping through the air and slashing his arm. He fell to his knees, bleeding, as the others froze. The machine refused to start again for the rest of the day. They left before sunset. By morning, the wound on the foreman's arm had swollen and blackened. He was taken to the hospital, muttering that he had felt a cold hand stop him as he reached for the statue. The next day, one of the vendors who had been mocking the pilgrims found her entire stock ruined. The candles melted overnight, though there had been no heat. The printed cards had turned blank, their ink washed away as if erased by unseen rain. When she tried to light a match to start again, it wouldn't spark. "Bad luck," she said, trying to laugh, but her hands trembled. Amid the fear and gossip, faith itself began to divide. Some whispered that the Virgin was angry, that she was defending her place from those who sought to profit from her. Others said it was all superstition, coincidence, the villagers letting myth rule them again. The mayor called for calm. "We must be practical," he said. "If this statue brings visitors, then she brings blessings too. Let us build something worthy of her." But his voice was hollow, and even he avoided the statue after dark. Then, one night, the candles around the Virgin burned brighter than ever, their flames steady and blue. People gathered, afraid to speak. The air felt thick, humming with unseen presence. And in that deep silence, a wind rose, not from the sea, but from within the ruins themselves. The flames bent inward toward the statue. A low sound filled the air, not thunder, not song, but something between the two. Then, as suddenly as it came, the wind stopped. The candles stood straight again, unshaken. When morning came, the stalls had collapsed. The ground where the construction was to begin had caved in, revealing old stones beneath, the buried foundation of the forgotten church. It was as if the earth itself had spoken. Not here, not this way. In the days that followed, people grew quiet again. The vendors packed their things. The mayor resigned from his plans. Pilgrims continued to come, but no one sold or bought. They only prayed. The silence returned, the kind that carried weight, the kind that felt like listening. And among the villagers, whispers spread of more subtle signs. The sick recovering, quarrels mended, lost things found. Not grand miracles, but gentle ones. The kind that required faith, not proof. Thomas watched all this with a heavy heart. He said little, but one evening he turned to the priest and murmured, "It seems even miracles must protect themselves from men." The priest nodded slowly. "Faith is always tested, Thomas, sometimes by suffering, sometimes by success." They stood together in the fading light, watching the statue glow faintly in the dusk, peaceful, eternal,
untouched by all the noise of human ambition. The storm had torn the town apart, but greed had almost done what the winds could not, steal its soul. Now the people understood. They rebuilt their humility with the same hands that had once built their pride. And when they prayed again, they did so not for miracles, not for wealth, but for the strength to stay worthy of what they had been given.
It began, as all rebirths do, with silence. After the fever of miracles and greed, the town seemed to exhale, as if the earth itself were resting. The air grew softer. The waves, once wild and cruel, now broke gently along the shore. For the first time since the storm, people began to listen to one another again. Neighbors who had not spoken since the flood now shared food. Children played where debris once lay. And in the heart of the ruined district, where the statue stood, the people gathered, not for spectacle, not for profit, but for gratitude. It was Tomas who spoke first. "We should build her a home," he said. "Not grand, not gold, just a roof to keep her dry." The villagers agreed. There were no architects, no engineers, only fishermen, carpenters, widows, and children. But they worked as one. They cleared the ground by hand, salvaged planks from broken houses, and shaped stones from the fallen church foundation. Day by day, something rose from the ashes, not a cathedral, but a chapel. It had walls of patched wood and a roof of tin, yet it breathed peace. The scent of salt, earth, and faith filled the air. When the first candle was lit inside, the flicker danced across the faces of the workers, illuminating tears that no one tried to hide. As they built, stories resurfaced. The small miracles people had carried quietly in their hearts. The mother whose sick child had awakened one morning without fever. The old fisherman who had found his lost wedding ring buried in the sand by the statue. The girl who had been mute since the storm, now softly humming hymns as she helped paint the walls. Each tale wove into the next, until the town itself felt like a single prayer. When the chapel was finished, they gathered for Mass under the open sky. The priest's voice trembled as he spoke. "This house is made of your hands, and what is built by faith, no storm can destroy." There was no choir, no organ, no gold cross, only human voices rising in imperfect harmony. The hymn that day was the same one they had sung in the ruins months before, Ave Maria. As the last note faded, a wind passed through the chapel, gentle like a blessing. Candles flickered but did not go out. In the weeks that followed, the little chapel became a beacon. Pilgrims continued to visit, but they came quietly now, leaving flowers, prayers, and tears. The town did not advertise. It did not need to. Those who were meant to come simply found their way. The sea calmed. The market reopened, simple but honest. Fishermen returned to the waters. Children went back to school. Life, fragile and beautiful, began again. One evening, Tomas sat on the chapel steps watching the sunset. The sky was the same color as the sea that had once destroyed everything, and yet now it looked gentle, forgiving. The priest joined him. "You've helped rebuild more than a chapel, Tomas," he said. "You've rebuilt faith." Tomas smiled faintly. "No, Father. Faith rebuilt me." They sat in silence for a while, the waves whispering beyond. Inside the chapel, the Virgin's statue glowed softly in the fading light, her face still serene, untouched by time or weather. Around her, the air shimmered faintly, like the breath of something eternal. And as night fell, the town, once broken by wind and water, slept beneath a sky of countless stars. No one called it a miracle anymore. They didn't need to. Because the miracle was already alive in every heart that had learned to love again. Years passed. The sea forgot its rage, though the people never forgot the storm that bore its name, Kalmaegi. Grass grew where debris once lay. The town rebuilt, humbler, quieter, more alive than before. Fishermen still cast their nets, children still ran barefoot through the sand, and the chapel stood at the center, small, weathered, yet steadfast, like a heartbeat that refused to fade. The statue remained exactly as they had found her that day, face serene, eyes unbroken, forever looking slightly downward, as if watching over a wound that had finally learned to heal. Pilgrims still came, not in crowds, but in gentle trickles. Some prayed for healing, others came to give thanks. But most came simply to see, not the statue, but the place itself, where grief had turned to grace. They said that if you stood quietly long enough, you could hear the wind murmur through the chapel rafters, carrying a voice softer than breath. I am with you. No one knew if it was imagination or faith. No one tried to prove it either. Tomas grew old. His hair turned white as the sea foam. He still came every morning to sweep the chapel steps and light the first candle of the day. When visitors asked if he believed in the miracle, he would smile faintly and say, "The storm took everything I had, my family, my home, my faith. But it gave me something else, a reason to live for others. If that isn't a miracle, what is?" When he died, they found him kneeling by the altar, hands folded, the candle still burning beside him. The villagers said his face looked peaceful, just like hers. They buried him on the hill above the chapel, facing the sea. During his funeral, a sudden wind rose from the water, strong but gentle, carrying the scent of salt and rain. The candles never went out. Years later, the town would be marked on maps as Santa Maria del Kalmaegi, Saint Mary of the Storm. Travelers passing through would stop, pray, and move on, leaving behind shells, flowers, and silence. And when storms gathered again on the horizon, people said the chapel bells sometimes rang by themselves, soft, distant, warning and blessing all at once. As for the narrator, I came years after it all happened. I walked those same muddy paths, now paved and quiet. I spoke to the old priest, now nearly blind, and to the children who never knew the storm, but still whispered her name in awe. I stood before the statue. Her face was still untouched, serene, eternal. A beam of sunlight fell across her cheeks, and for a moment I thought I saw her lips tremble into the faintest smile. Was it the light, the wind, my imagination? I will never know. But as I left, the sea behind me calm and endless, one thought stayed in my heart, that the greatest storms are not made of wind or rain, but of the battles we carry inside us. And when faith, however fragile, survives those storms, it becomes something more powerful than any miracle carved in stone. It becomes rebirth. The chapel stands still. The candles burn. The sea breathes softly against the shore. And somewhere, in the hush between waves, a voice whispers, as it did long ago, I am with you.